Well, at least we had last week together alongside Gene Williams, the founder and administrator of Warchant.com. My name is Tom Lang, and you are now watching the Warchant.com postgame show after Florida State is throttled on the road by Louisville. The only benefit to losing like this, Gene, is it happened at noon, which means we can get on with our evening, and this won't be taking us into the 2 or 3 a.m. hour. But there is the final score. 48-16, the Cardinals over the Noles. Gene, I'm sure you've got a lot of thoughts, none of them positive. Where to begin?
No, this is, I think just from a macro perspective, it's just so, the one thing you didn't want to have happen after having that humongous win for the program last week is to take a giant step back and just play awful and get throttled by a 1-4 team. It just seems to undo all the good that was done last week, because now this is going to fester. This is a bye week, so you're going to have to sit on this thing and just suck it for the next 2 weeks before you can do anything about it. It's just, it's bad for the program. It's bad for recruiting. You know, I still think they can salvage something. Again, I've always talked about, I think that month of November is the most important for this program, regardless of, you know, what's happening. But man, it's like you took 5 steps forward and then you just took 5 steps back in a week. I don't get it. You know, we can talk a lot about, obviously the story is the defense. I mean, just, we thought maybe they'd made a little bit of progress. But man, it was just horrific. I mean, they scored 5 straight times, 4 straight touchdowns to start the game, and it wasn't even difficult, Tom. I mean, it was just a hot knife through butter. It was just no effort at all, just huge gash plays, guys just taking horrible angles, missing tackles. There was a one play, I think, where Hawkins was running around the end, the over pursuit by, was it Dent and was it Robinson, just both crashing to the middle.
Yep.
When you got a speedy running back going, what do you, I just don't even understand. That can't be taught in practice, them to be bad. I can get into some of the wide receiver drops in that too, but let's start with the defense, Tom. I know you kind of look at that thing from an analytical eye. I'm just getting mad throwing things around the room. But
Sure.
What did you see besides, was it just bad tackling, bad angles, you know, just poor play across the board, or was there something going on here?
A lot of bad stuff. I'd start with a couple of errors early on. You get them into a third and manageable from the defensive perspective on the first drive, and then you telegraph that you're blitzing. You see the linebackers.
Yeah, that one killed me.
Communicating, and they're going to change their gaps to try and confuse Louisville. But Louisville already knows how many are coming, so they've got it blocked up. You're in man coverage. It's, I believe, Brownlee against Tutu Atwell in the slot in man. And it's 2-2 pretty much to a house call at that point. The leverage was terrible. The technique was bad. And 2-2's really good when you're left on an island against somebody like that. And then the over pursuit was the killer, Gene. You've got that play stopped in the backfield. This was an avalanche of a first half. It started out okay. The defensive line, I thought, was surging all right to start the game.
Yeah.
You laugh about it now. But if you look at that run by Hawkins, I mean, you've got Janarius, and like you said, Akeem Dent also on the backside. Didn't see him much after that until late in the game in garbage time. But that's just a lazy play. That you've got to be ready for that kind of stuff. I mean, you know, this is a team in Louisville that's going to try and trick your eyes anyway. So backside discipline is critical against the Cardinals, and that should be second and long or a loss. I forget what down it was, but it should be a tackle for loss. And what does it turn into? A touchdown going the other way. After that, it's out the gate for Louisville.
Yeah.
I thought Florida State's defensive line started okay, but then, you know, there's also something else, Gene. It's a little bit technical, but you know, Adam Fuller said this week in his press conference when he was talking to everybody on Monday that they have their rotations already preset for the defense. You know, that means if you get somebody else that you're going to sub in at linebacker or defensive back or on the defensive line, they've already got that mapped out. And then after you go through the first quarter or so, then they're going to, you know, go with a hot hand. But the Florida State defensive front was dominant early in this game. They were. Look how many times they were in Louisville's backfield.
Yeah.
Then you get a 1st and 10 from their own 6-yard line. You pin Louisville back inside their own territory. Then you get a false start. It's 1st and 13 from the 3. All right? You have Dennis Briggs and Fabian Lovett in the game in that moment. Marvin and Durden had been owning the game at that point in the trenches. And what happens? They're able to create the space, and then they go 94 yards plus 3 because of the penalty, like nothing. And the game was over. It's a very frustrating day, Gene. The defense is where I start, but the drops towards the end, they really started to irritate me.
Yeah, it's just, you can't say enough about the defense. You're right. So many things we could second guess, but at the end of the day, you couldn't tackle. You know, it just didn't seem like the effort was there. You just mistake after mistake. Obviously, some of that stuff can be coached up. And I know, you know, we've been, for the most part, giving Fuller a pass, but at some point as we get later in the season and the team keeps looking like this, and there was some schematic stuff that you pointed out too, I think. And like you said, with the rotation of the personnel, sometimes in key situations, there's some stuff you can second guess. So that defense has a long way to go. We got to see some improvements, but you're right. We cannot give a pass to the other side, which crazy to me, Tom. This is the second straight game and the third time this season the offense has been shut out in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit bizarre. They weren't going to win the game if they would have scored a couple times. They should have in the second half. I mean, it almost lost the North Carolina game because they couldn't score when they had several opportunities. It's crazy when you watch it, like, okay, they're more or less had a 3 or out or 2 in there, but they're more or less moving the ball. And the thing that comes back to the drops, I lost track at the end because there were 2 or 3 there in the last drive or 2, how many they had in the game. I'm very curious to see the numbers when they come out from Pro Football Focus, the number of drops in the receiver grades. This might have been the worst game I've seen by receivers at Florida State, maybe ever. And I know Terry's not out there, so your top player is missing from that unit. But, even the broadcaster at the end, like, they're throwing a lot of 50-50 balls. You got to win some of those, down on the goal line at the end, and guys were not fighting for the balls and the drops. And they could have cost you, I think, at least 21 points. I counted on drop passes. And the key one happened early on, Tom, when you're down 14-7, you're driving down the field. You got that penalty on Daniels, and you came right back to that throw, right? And it was wide open, hit him in stride. I think that was Helton. That first one.
Number 1 of 2 on the day for him.
Yeah. And you end up having to punt that, and they go down. And suddenly, instead of being 14-14, it's 21-7. And it's rolling like that. And then you had the one that absolutely was nuts. The other, I think that was Pokey. He dropped out of his hands, and they picked it off.
Yeah.
So you're only going to cut the score to maybe, I think if you score a touchdown there, it's 23-38. But you're only down, you're down a couple scores. It's possible at that point. You're still in the game. It's in the third quarter. So, that was just a horrific play that turned into an interception. They go down and score. And at that point, the game, for all intents and purposes, is over. And then, of course, at the end of the game, Chubba's got a chance to have his first touchdown pass. And there's Mr. Helton again showing up, right in his hands, no one around him, popping out of there. That's probably 21 points, or maybe kick a field goal there, 17 points, whatever the case is. But that's a lot of points left on the field with drops. And I don't know what you do. There aren't any other receivers. There's a couple freshmen, I guess, that didn't play much. But man, other than spending extra time on the jugs machine, I don't know what you do about that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of complaints to go around for the offense and the defense. The one thing is the kick return unit got a lot of work today in a 48-16 loss. 850-805-5911 is the number to get involved. 850-805-5911. And, Gene, I'd say 6 or 7 drops probably is what you're going to see on the Pro Football Focus report tomorrow. It was in a lot of ways, today was just extremely, extremely disappointing because you've got moments to either prolong the game or make the game interesting once again. The one time the defense turns in a 3-and-out to start the second half, we go 3-and-out the other way. It was clear that Jordan Travis wasn't 100%. He wasn't. It wasn't just coaching for him to get out of bounds in some of these runs where he was running up the sideline. That's also him protecting his shoulder. So he was playing hurt today. But, his right arm works fine, and some of the throws were just absurd. Some of the decisions toward the end, you could tell he was mentally kind of fried. He made some choices to just kind of throw it up and hope. It's frustrating all around. And to me, you look at that first touchdown drive, and you get lucky to score there, obviously, because Jordan Travis dribbles the football off the ground, one hand to the other.
It was a hell of a play, though, to keep his composure, though. But, yeah, it was a little bit lucky the ball bounced right back up to him.
Well, in the moment, you're thinking, wow, Jordan Travis, what a playmaker. But then as the game goes on and you see what the offense looks like with all the false start penalties and the alignment issues and guys not knowing where to line up and the drops, offense wasn't ready to go today. Like, that is just a symptom of a greater problem. And that's the hard part is, we talked about it this week. The challenge for Mike Norvell was, all right, you've got some positive momentum going. Nobody get too high with the highs. You got to stay focused on the details. The details, frankly, just weren't there today across the board. They weren't there. That's the hard part about what we saw today.
Yeah, there were because we saw so many good things. I know the defense had some laps and there were some issues in the second half of the North Carolina game, but you saw that build off the North Carolina game. So you had 2 games in a row. You saw little things, but man, they just regressed across the board. You mentioned the little things and the big things and the penalties. Again, I don't know the final numbers, but I know they had 6 penalties at halftime. For I think 65 yards. Again, that's just more leaving stuff. You're allowing them to extend drives. You're killing your own drives on that stuff. And I think for the last 2 seasons, Florida State's been number 1 overall in penalties. With a new coaching staff, you would think this is going to stop. And you go back and look at Mike Norvell, they're pretty good in penalties when it comes to that. So I don't know what the deal is in there. It looks like they're disciplining players when they should. Administering corrections. They talk a big game, and Norvell seemed very upset this week when we talked to him in the media session about especially the pre-snap penalties on offense, Obviously, the loss of composure, personal fouls that they couple those again today. I don't know. Again, I don't know what you can do differently other than keep pulling guys out of the game, but it doesn't seem to be taken.
No, it seems like the offensive line takes turns. I mean, Cam McDonald had a really big play to start the game. They schemed it up. It's the rolling right throw for Jordan Travis. But after that, Gene, I mean, you've got moments of a pre-snap penalty. You've got him whiffing on a block on the perimeter early in this game for a screen to the right. It was like the next play after the big catch down the field after Louisville kicked it out of bounds. Florida State's moving. They're over midfield, whiffs on a block. And then there's a play where he runs back and forth across the formation 3 or 4 times because he doesn't know where to go, and Jordan's having to tell him where to go. I mean, they didn't look like they were all that ready today, and that's kind of crazy. You would think that North Carolina would have been the launching point, but it wasn't. I don't think you stepped all the way back from the momentum you built with North Carolina, but you came pretty close today. And for the second time this season, you're going into a bye with a bitter taste in your mouth, and you've got to sit on this for 2 weeks. Noel fans, if you're mad now, think about how angry and irritated you're going to be about 10 days from now when we're trying to wait for the next game on the schedule, but this is the performance that you're left with. It's amazing how this perception could change, Gene, because if North Carolina was the game before the bye, we'd be sky high for 2 weeks. And now you have this, and that's just really frustrating.
And you know what's really frustrating, Tom, is this is a lousy birthday present for you. They should have known better. They should perform better for you on your birthday. That's very disappointing. Happy birthday, brother. Definitely owe you a drink. And I love that you had your moniker on there, the guy on the left.
I didn't forget.
Lang. That was great. Who was the caller last week who dubbed you, that gave you that?
It was the gentleman from Colorado, and I forget his name.
Was it our friend? Was it our drunken friend from Colorado?
So now I'm sure somebody will help us in the comments section today. Gene, also, it looks like we have ourselves somebody contributing to the cause, and it's Michael. And there he is. And we've got a new sounder. You asked for the sounder, and so we delivered. Here it is, folks. This is what you're going to hear every time you contribute to the cause on the Warchant.com postgame show. Oh, yeah! That's a little light. I'll turn it up for the next run, but that is Macho Man Randy Savage, and he is going to greet your generosity with a little bit of Slim Jim. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah! There you go. So thank you, Michael, so much.
Thanks, Michael. That is appreciated very much.
There's a lot of players that Florida State fans don't want to see any more of, but
that sounds a lot like the Kool-Aid guy.
It does. It's the same concept. Oh, yeah! Gene, it looks like they're into Mike Norvell's press conference right now. I could pick it up, or we can wait. Up to you. What would you like to do?
If we don't have any calls waiting yet, let's go to the press conference.
We do have calls.
Let's take calls. We'll jump on that a little bit later. So why don't we let the fans vent a little bit? We want to hear what we're going to have. We definitely want to hear, but man, I think we're not cured yet. We need to vent a little bit more about this. There's a lot of frustration built up from this one. So let's hear what some of the fans have to say.
All right. Well, then first up on the Warchant.com postgame show is Derril. Derril's calling from North Carolina. Go ahead. Vent away, good sir.
Hey, Tom. Hey, Gene. This is Derril from North Carolina. Just wanted to say, first of all, happy birthday, Tom. Hope you have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry we didn't get a win for you, my man. But anyhow, I'm not sure what happened from last week to this week. I don't know where our team went from, last week to this week. Seemed like we, defensively, we didn't, even when we got a push, we let them out of the box. We didn't, the linebackers, they didn't make any tackles. Secondary, when they did hit them, they didn't do anything. Offensively, I mean, wide receivers, I mean, you got to catch the ball. I mean, when they hit you in the numbers, I mean, man, they teach you that in Pop Warner. I mean, when you hit you in the hands, I mean, you gotta catch it. I mean, you've been doing this for, since you was in Pee Wee League. I mean, but anyhow, I mean, I'm not here to try to down my team. I'm 57 years old. I've been following Florida State since I was 5 years old and listening to them on the radio with my dad. And I've seen some good games. We've had some great players, come through, and it's frustrating to see, wide receivers, don't they might not have been wide open, but yet they still, the ball hit them in the hands. I mean, when the ball hits you in the hands, I was always taught if they hit you in the hands, you're supposed to catch it. I mean, and so I mean, I don't understand what happened to the offense from last week to this week, but I mean, I don't know if it's players not responding to coaching. I don't know if it's our coaching not being able to get through to our guys, but something's not getting through, and so
Agreed, Derril. 100%. I'm sorry that dropped out there, but there are a lot of fundamental questions that we're gonna have to sit on for a couple of weeks, Gene, across the board.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating when you're watching your team and you see drop after drop, especially when a defense is struggling. I mean, those drops are magnified when you desperately need to keep up with another team that's scoring at will. So yeah, that is incredibly frustrating. I get it. I don't know what the record is, but they're up pretty high. They're definitely in the top, probably 10 in terms of drops I've ever seen in an FSU game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just like I said, the wide receiver unit's got a lot of work to do. I know Ron Dugans was homesick. I don't know if you caught the news during the broadcast. They said James Blackman and Ron Dugans they were both homesick. They believe it is not COVID related. I know James Blackman, according to his guardian, tested negative earlier in the week. So we hope both of those gentlemen heal up and are healthy to go. Good thing got a bye week, so hopefully they'll be healthy and ready to go. But I don't know. Did it hurt not having your wide receivers coach out there? I don't know. But I mean, again, you practice. All these guys have played wide receiver for a long time, and they know how to. They've caught the ball before, so it's just a lack of focus. I don't make sure we're getting a couple tips here, which we really appreciate that. And
Mr. Ortonier, thank you for the well wish. I appreciate that.
Yes, and I was almost like, man, we ought to be paying you guys at this point, having to sit through that game. And I think there was another one we had here, so we might get the Kool-Aid guy ready to go again. I think there's one more. There we go. There we go. I'm not going to try to pronounce that Yaki Gaddafi 954, but thank you very much, buddy.
That's good.
Okay. Yeah, that's a thing. I don't know. That's a good point there because 2-2, you didn't see. That's a good point. You didn't see Asante on him very much, obviously, because he was running wide open all the time. That's a good question. I mean, I don't know if who's the other receiver I know is pretty good too, and I didn't hear his number as often. Mm-hmm. And I know he torched Florida State last year. Dez, I think something is his name, but yeah, I must have been shadowing him.
Yeah, Fitzpatrick. Yeah, number 7 is the other one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, must have been shadowing him because, Fitzpatrick, 2 catches for 30 yards. That's all Fitzpatrick did in the game. Some of that you have to go back and look. I don't know. Did you see that, Tom? Was he shadowing Fitzpatrick in that game?
I don't know that he was. And Atwell's big play early in the game on that third down was he's in the slot. So if you're gonna have Asante, shadow somebody, he's gonna have to go into the slot, boundary field, all of it. And that was one. I don't even know if you want to bring up the Asante Samuel part of it, but the hard part here, Gene, in general, is if you're leaving these guys in man coverage on an island, you've got singles on Tutu Atwell. You better get home and
that's not a guy you can single up unless you've got a Dion or somebody insane.
Or unless you're going to get onto the quarterback in about 2 seconds flat. You've got to get in there quick, affect the throw. That happened once or twice today, but certainly not nearly enough because then Cunningham can just throw to a spot in the field.
Yeah.
We'll go run underneath it and go find it. That was interesting to me to see all that man coverage and the guys on an island. I get that these guys are blue chippers in theory, but we've seen outside of Samuel, we saw it late last week with Dotson and Dent in single coverage. Yes, they're getting roasted left and right. Next up right now on the Warchant.com postgame show, Virginia Beach. We're going to Gator, Kirk. Welcome to the program, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Happy birthday, sir.
Thanks.
I hope you have a better birthday after this loss. How you doing, Gene?
Doing well. Good to hear from you, GK.
Yeah, it's very, very disappointing on the overall performance. I mean, the defense. I don't know if it's players or coaches now because we looked out of position on a lot of plays. I mean, we had them in 2nd and 25 and gave up that huge play to Atwell. I mean, I saw one blitz we had 2 guys going in the same hole, and they basically blocked each other to get there. So I'm kind of wondering what your thoughts are. It just doesn't seem like they play like today, like they play with heart, offense or defensive, with the drop balls, with the missed assignments, with the poor tackling. and you can't coach hard. I mean, you can only get embarrassed so many times before you just bow up and go out there and play.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, Gator Kirk. It was frustrating. But as Tom pointed out early on, I especially thought the defensive front was getting penetration. They were fighting hard. Really, the problem was the over pursuit, the lack of contain, and then the chunk plays. The chunk plays are happening. It's nothing Marvin Wilson can do about a chunk play down the field. I mean, he can't do anything about that. I mean, you can control that interior, but that's all you can do at that point. So it was a segment I thought fought a little bit, but yeah, every other aspect of the defense, whether it was tackling, over pursuit, getting burned in coverage, penalties, constantly, it was pretty much everything went wrong.
Yeah, Gene, I'd say I think on offense they had heart. They just screwed up a bunch. They had a lot of mental mistakes. I thought Corbin ran hard in this game. LaDamian always runs hard. Toafili had a couple of nice plays. Travis is playing through injury.
Well, the running backs, yeah, but don't give me the receivers. That was horrific.
That's correct. One thing I would say, though, if you're talking about like checking out of this game, perimeter blocking was still there late. That's one good place to look as an indicator of, are you just kind of shutting it down? Defensively, you might be able to look at some things, especially when you're, if they're running simple outside zone or stretch, and then it's all about getting to a spot or getting off of a block, and you can't do either of those things. That's where, you might be able to call into question some things that happened in the second half, but it's just, this is a comprehensive loss. Sometimes there are losses where you say the defense was the reason or the offense was today. At the end of the day, it was across the board. There's really not many places you can go look outside of maybe those running backs and saying they took care of business. Next up on the Warchant.com post-game show is Sanders from Crystal River. We remember Sanders. Welcome back to the show, Sanders. Have at it, good sir.
Hi there, guys. Happy birthday, Tom.
Oh, thank you.
Gene, thank you for taking our calls. You are a man of the people.
I try to be. Thanks, Sanders.
I think if Louisville was number 5, we would have been closer. I think we needed that little motivation to make us play like they were Notre Dame. But I think we needed a punt block to get momentum, and Louisville didn't punt until it was too late.
Well, fair enough. If you're going to bring that idea, Gene, seriously to the table and say, was Florida State not motivated this week? That's hard for me to understand.
Yeah.
Given all the losing that's been going on here the last few years, that one win is going to change whether or not you're locked in. I don't know that I buy that, but I know that Sanders was also saying that tongue-in-cheek. Did you think that they looked like they, this week they didn't take it very seriously, or they didn't take Louisville very seriously, or did they just get beat today?
Well, yeah, I would definitely say they got beat, but I think it's one of those things. The problem with the culture, I've talked about that over and over with this team, it's very fragile with this team. I mean, sure, they got a little taste of success, but you notice like last week when they had a couple big plays early on, it fed on itself. What happened in this game? They got out, they got great. They scored in the first drive. Everything's going well. And you had the big 2-2 Atwell play, guy out of position, and then they went down and scored. And then you had a chance to tie the game up, and you had the drop, and they go down and score. And it's like here we go again. It's that fragile mentality of this culture, and it's been that way for a few years. They have a hard time handling success. They almost blew the last game. They have a hard time handling failure too. It just seems to feed on itself. And meanwhile, Louisville is better than a 1-4 team. They were competed with Notre Dame down the stretch. They've got a lot of really good athletes on the team. It was the opposite for them. They got positive momentum. Things were clicking for them. So they were feeding off the positive momentum while that was killing Florida State. So that's one of those things that you need time to build that culture up for this program. I know people don't want to hear it, but I think that's something in time they will get. But I mean, I understand the wait has been a long time. These guys got to start toughening up a little bit. Adversity comes with the game. I mean, you're going to get that in any sport at any level. You're going to have bad moments. How you respond to those are so important. And they responded in the worst possible way in this one. They let it snowball, and they got worse on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I thought that sequence, you brought it up earlier, Gene, but when Preston Daniel gets called for the crackback block, which it's football, man. I mean, what's he supposed to do? Just stand there and run like a basketball pick? I don't think he's trying to drive through anybody's head. That's a linebacker whose eyes are in the wrong place. That's a tough one for me to swallow. I think some crackback blocks absolutely should be flagged. That, to me, I don't know. And then the drop right after it from Keyshawn is just, that's lethal. That's last week those little things cropped up and it didn't cost us the game. This time they put Louisville in overdrive. This looked like it was going to be a bit of a track meet, but then you make a few mistakes and Louisville keeps on scoring and scoring and scoring. But I do want one positive thing. So I thought Emmett Rice played very hard in this game. And if you look at Louisville's 5th touchdown that gets wiped off the board and it turns into a field goal just before the end of the first half, I mean, Rice, he may not just be good enough, Gene, but at least it's somebody who's pursuing and giving all of the effort. He did something again late in the second half in the end zone where he sticks with a play and plays to the echo of the whistle. You've got to circle those things, even if they're in losing moments like today, and you've got to let the team know this is going to be the standard. Because if you're jogging as you're following somebody down the field in the second half, which I think we saw a little bit today, that cannot happen. Next up on the Warchant.com post-game show is Mike in Ocala. Mike just heard the bell. He is on with us. Welcome to the show, Mike. Your thoughts?
Hey, guys. How you doing? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Loud and clear, Mike.
Awesome. Great. First of all, I just want to say happy birthday, Tom.
Thank you, Mike.
Sorry it wasn't the most positive start, but I heard you say last week that you were a class of 2009 FSU alum.
Yep.
That's myself, and so I just want to say I'm also a class of 09 alum. Proud of you, and it looks like our generation's turning out okay. So hey, let's keep that going.
We went through the same pain, man. Go ahead.
Yes, we did go through the same struggles and woes there, but we made it out. Okay, so here's the thoughts on the game. And as far as the wide receiver play, what I don't understand is that we drop these balls, right? But these boys are recruited to play wide receiver at the Florida State University, the Florida State. And they were recruited because obviously they made some really, really big plays in high school. Or they were the best player on their team, or maybe even the state or whatever. But they get to the college level and these big moments, and then they let it slip through their hand. And that just goes back to Norvell's acronym and his climb, the CLIMB. The M stands for mental toughness. So in the moment, like they know they have the ability to do it. It's not like they want to drop the ball on purpose, but when it gets to them and they're running the route and the ball's coming their way, it just there's a disconnect and it hits the ground. So I just think we just got to become mentally tough. First, I think, Gene, you hit it right on the head, is that we just have some fragilities that are happening, inside of our minds. I mean, because like Keyshawn Helton, you could have, if you told me he was going to drop 2 passes like that before this game, I would have said there's no way, because he's mostly reliable in a lot of situations. He's dropped before, but he's one of the leaders of the team. He's supposed to be, but overall, like that's a big issue. And would Tamari Terry have helped out? Sure, but maybe he would have had a drop. Hopefully not. But I mean, these are good balls that are being thrown to these guys, and if they hit the ground, then it only hurts the team. And just overall, the offense, really, the second half of last week and the second half of this week scored 0 points. Should have had at least 1 touchdown last week in the second half, but we got 2 points total in the third and fourth quarter of the last 2 games. And those 2 points came off the hands of the defense. So, like, really, we just got to figure out how to score in the second half, really, because it just seems like in order for us to win games and to continue to be competitive, we're going to have to outscore teams, right? So defense played better in the second half. They had some plays, but in these guys, like, they're hard to replicate in practice. Javian Hawkins, Tutu Atwell, those are small, shifty guys, and if you miss a tackle, they're gone, and that's what happened today. So, and on a lot of those, I don't think it was really a lack of effort. I just think they just took the wrong angle, and then boom, they got by and missed the tackle, and that was it. So
I agree. I thought that was a stopping point there. Sorry, Mike. Gene, yeah, your thoughts on that, obviously.
Yeah. He makes a good point about, the receivers. The frustrating part is, look, the defense is what it is. We're hoping it's going to get better. It's a bad defense, so you're going to have to outscore teams. What that does, it puts a lot of pressure on the offense. You can't have, the pre-snap, that's where the pre-snap penalties, the drops, the missed opportunities, those are going to kill you because they're magnified. You can't do that. You knew early on in this game it was going to be a track meet. You're going to have to win in a shootout. And every time you have one of those drops, you're potentially costing your team 7 points, and you just can't do it. You have to play. not necessarily perfect, but man, you can't have whatever they were, 6-7 drops in the game. And I don't know. Do you have the penalty numbers up there, Tom? Somewhere? What do we end up with?
Well, in the first half, I think it was 65 yards worth of penalties, but I'll pull
6
up.
for 65 in the first half. Yeah, I don't see that on there, but I mean, they're probably close to 10 somewhere. Probably close to 10 on there. Is that on there?
11 for 104.
11 to 104. Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's just nonsense. You cannot do that. And probably most of those are on offense. Yeah. And it's continuing to kill you. And, when you throw in a few missed assignments here and there, nothing. And I love the way the running backs, they ran. I mean, look at Florida State. They ran for 260. You told me they would have gone into this game and ran for 265 yards. I'd say they probably win the game, not blown out and embarrassed. I mean, if they were able to run probably as good as Notre Dame did last week. So it's baffling to me. And that just goes to the rest of the team, the rest of the players on offense not holding their weight. And again, I don't know what you do. I just don't know if there's the personnel there at wide receiver. Now, you get the bye week. Almost certainly you're going to have Terry back in 2 weeks for the Pitt game. So hopefully that raises the whole unit up and he's able to go out there and do stuff. But man, you just cannot have these drops and these penalties over and over again.
Yeah, one would think that things would open up underneath, of course, if Terry's involved in the offense. I mean, there were some shots down the field that were open. This offense week in and week out generates open looks. You just got to be able to cash in. And I think, Mike made a good point, too, to say that Keyshawn's reliable. He largely has been. This is,
usually,
that's characteristic as hell. He's had a bit of a rough year, but he's coming off of a really tough injury that he worked very hard to rehab through. I thought Warchant's job of documenting that and telling that story was excellent. But it's just, and Pokey is also an effort player too. And to see him drop a ball like that in that key circumstance, and of course it's deflected, goes in the air and it turns into an interception. I mean, that's just, some of it is rotten luck. And then some of it is self-inflicted wounds. And I guess if the guys didn't get the message last week, Gene, that, these little things are going to add up to a loss at some point, I guess they get it now on the plane home because that's 2 weeks in a row. And the thing that stunned me of all things was that we go 3 and out to start the second half because starting games and starting halves, this offense typically is, I mean, you could just write it in ink.
Well, and you blew the drive at the end of the first half. That's a great point. I mean, what you did so well against North Carolina is having that final drive to score the touchdown, which effectively won the game, and the drive to start the second half. If not for the bonehead play by Lucas, you win the game. That puts the game away for good, and he's done so well in those. And then the exact opposite in this one, you blew the series before the half. I thought you were going to score on that one, and then
31-21.
You almost gave away that field goal with a few seconds left in the half, and then for them to score and then you to go 3 and out. I mean, that was it right there. That put the final nail in the coffin for Florida State. So all the stuff they did well, they did not do. And that's a good point about guys like Pokey, former walk-on, and then Keyshawn, who's still battling back. He's still got that knee brace on, you can see. Maybe they're not the most athletic guys and they're battling back from stuff, but those kind of guys, you better be reliable. You can't be, you're not world beaters. You better catch the ball consistently. So that's a bad combination to be those kind of guys and dropping passes all over the place.
Yeah, frankly, I thought the person who made the biggest catch of the game was Warren Thompson on a third down and a contested ball. And then he came up lame after that. I think he returned to the game, obviously, but when you have like a choice between the Warren Thompson third down catch and maybe the Pokey Wilson catch in the back of the end zone on fourth down, that should be a routine catch, but that's a tough angle. And that's it. Like, that's all you're talking about. Yeah. The receivers are not playing up to the level of the running backs with the compete and the focus. There's no doubt. Next up on the Warchant.com postgame show is Luis in Orange City, Florida. He hears the bell. He is welcome to the Warchant.com postgame show. Hello, Luis. How are you?
Hey guys, happy birthday, Tom, by the way.
Thank you.
And hey, Gene, listening to the commentary, and stuff on Facebook and all the comments and all that stuff. But I mean, my question is this: I know you guys, I know you can't coach art. I know there is talent, but I mean, is it stuff that's coachable? I mean, that Fuller and his team can teach these guys. I mean, can they watch film and say, hey, look, this is what you're doing, and this is what needs to be done to be fixed. I wonder like what he shows them, when it comes to film, and it's not just the defense. I mean, the offense made some errors, not catching the balls and stuff. But I mean, at some point, something's got to give. I want to see them be Florida State football again. I mean, and they're definitely not playing Florida State football when they go out there and they play like this, especially in that team that they played today. Definitely did not look 1-4.
No.
Gene, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Does it go back to recruiting the type of players you've been recruiting the last couple of years? Do they simply not have that fight in them, that character? Just you hear a lot of times you talk to coaches about football, and we all hear we love the rivals camps and we love the height, weight, 40 times, verticals, all those fun stuff. But again, you talk to coach and recruiting, he goes, are they a football player? Are they going to go out there? They're going to fight. They're going to keep their composure. They're going to do the right things. Maybe, I do think there's been a downturn in recruiting, not only in talent, but a lot of guys, I don't know, they just don't seem to have it out there. And I'm sure some of that is the culture has been kind of beat out of them the last couple of years, as bad as things been. But I don't think that's something a coaching staff can fix overnight in terms of going out and practice and building that up, man. That may be a long haul thing you've got to fix. And some of that's through recruiting and some of that's through consistency and practice and everything else you got to do. And guys can learn to an extent, but man, it does. Like I said, I think the culture has been beat out of them. I think they're very fragile, and that's not going to be an easy fix. It's going to take a while.
Well, first of all, I want to thank California.
Woo! Look at that.
Yes, sir.
Woo!
Thank you.
My goodness.
He loves a good craft group. He's out in the San Diego area. He is a longtime listener of the Cameron Show and also a frequent Warchant.com board lurker, I would say. So thank you so much, good sir. I appreciate the well wishes. Well, listen, Gene, in the first half, the backside contain, to the question that was asked. Yeah, you could teach that. Akeem, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. Some of that, there's no doubt some of that is coaching. And you're right, absolutely. Some of the stuff is they didn't put guys in a good position, and some of that. But they did. They pulled Dent out on that, like you said after that. So what else can you do? You keep pulling. I see him when a guy makes a mistake, they're pulling him out of the game, but they just keep repeating the same mistakes.
So I think you're going to have to take your lumps with Steven Dix Jr. There are times where he plays timid, just point blank. There are times where he plays timid, and then there are times when you see the skill set that we brought here to Tallahassee that the coaching staff loves about him, and the reason that his snap count is going up. But I think for a lot of Nole fans, it's easier to look at a freshman, redshirt or true freshman, and a true one is Steven Dix Jr. and say, all right, you're going to make some mistakes. You're going to think a little bit out there in the field. We talked about it last week, like thinking steps versus playing steps. That's going to happen. But if you've got upperclassmen still picking the wrong gap or their eyes are in the backfield when they should be somewhere else, I don't know how fixable it's going to be. The one thing about this defense so far, if you think about the whole season to this point, they're streaky. When they're cold, they're terrible. When they're good, they affect the line of scrimmage quite well, and they can stop the run a little bit, and they can get around and fly to the football. There's a lot more cold than hot. There's no doubt, but it's streaky, and I think that's one of the things that's going to happen as you're installing a process. I'm not trying to be a season ticket salesperson for Florida State, but I think that's true, Gene. When you're trying to overhaul a culture, you're hoping that the thing trends up like the stock market will, but there are going to be little dips. Today was one dip, though. It was one.
Well, I mentioned that. Yeah, that's a good point. I remember I mentioned that last week. I think people got so caught up, and I saw we were talking about. We did the Warchant report, and I think all three of us picked FSU to win, but we weren't glowing. We said, "Look, it wouldn't surprise us if they lost. That this, they're still going to be big. It's up, there are going to be some ups and downs with this team. There's still some major holes and major problems with this team." I think some of the fan base got a little too caught up in what they saw in the result in beating what was obviously an overrated North Carolina team. There are going to be ups and downs. Now, I had no idea there was going to be this big of a dip after playing that well last week. But that's going to be a function. There are still, like you mentioned, there's some things missing big time, especially the linebacker position, some of the discipline plays, the tackling's not there. But you're right about Steven Dix, and I mentioned that earlier about players who want to play football. And are football players. Steven Dix is a football player. He will go in there, he'll hit you, he will fight hard. That's the kind of guy we need a lot more of him. And he's going to get better. I have no doubt if he stays healthy in a couple of years, he's going to be an outstanding college football player. You need more guys like that, but that goes to recruiting. That's where you got to rely on Norvell and the staff to get out there and find guys who can fight for you. They may not be the 5 stars that we're used to, but man, if you just go out there and fight a little bit, you mix in a few highly regarded guys, you can still be a pretty good darn team.
Gene, there it is. That's the segue of segues. When you said 5-star, I said, there it is, the opening, because the best tweet I saw during the game was James Blackman ain't the only one who didn't make the trip up to Louisville. And who was the author of that tweet? Our next guest, Ira Schofeld in himself. Ira, go ahead. Your thoughts. I'm sure a lot of them are not positive.
Yeah, we just got finished with the interviews. I think the biggest takeaway, I don't think anybody's really that surprised by the defense not being good. Even last week, when they got the win, they gave up 550-something yards and really kind of collapsed there in the second half and would have given the complete game away if North Carolina could have hit on a couple of those passes. So the defense, I mean, it was a little shocking at how bad they played, but that's not going to be the key to this team. The key to this team having a chance to win these games, I feel like for the rest of the season is going to be offense. And with Jordan Travis being banged up, and it was obvious he was running differently than he had run the last few weeks. I mean, he was kind of, you could see once he passed the line of scrimmage, he ran with two hands on the ball. He never put it under his arm like a ball carrier. He always kind of kept it two hands up, ran kind of upright, was quick to get out of bounds, didn't keep it as much on the zone read. And, this offense just is not going to be very productive if Jordan can't run the ball. And then we just did post-game interviews, and Mike Norvell acknowledged that Jordan has been banged up this week. And then Jordan, when he sat down for the interviews, people can watch the post-game interviews at warchant.com or on our YouTube channel. When Jordan sat down, you could see he was very ginger, just even sitting down. You could tell his upper body is really in pain, and maybe his lower body as well. But that to me is going to be the key. If he can't get healthy in these next couple of weeks, this offense is really going to struggle because he's been the key to everything with his mobility.
So that may be one of the benefits of the bye weeks. We were talking earlier, Ira, how just having to stew on that horrible loss for an extra week is not the best thing, but maybe it is to get some of these guys healed up. It has to be brought up. We didn't get to see the interviews yet, but I lost track of how many drops, and it was really, to me, a couple of the big ones early on really were huge for Florida State. Keyshawn having that early one, obviously Pokey when they're trying to fight back, and they finally turn momentum the other way, and then he drops it and they pick it off, go down and score, and effectively the game's over at that point. Was anything brought up about that during the interviews?
Yeah, Coach Norvell talked about the drop passes, and he kind of lumped it in with a lot of other mistakes. That it was just a lack of focus, guys not stepping up. And I heard you before I came in. I heard you guys talking about the expectations during the week, and when people asked me about this game, I really thought whoever kind of got off to a lead was probably going to win because you had two football teams, neither one that really believes in itself. Louisville came in 1-4. They have not had a lot of success. This was their first ACC win. Florida State did get that win last week, but if things went poorly, you wondered if they could respond, and they didn't, especially on the road. And I think that was, to me, drop passes have been a problem all season. They've dropped too many passes, especially some guys like Ontario Wilson and Keyshawn Helton, guys you expected to be more consistent because they're not freshmen. But I think today, though, it was just a combination of it looked like a team that was just running uphill into a headwind the entire night. They just never could fight through the adversity of the early blows that Louisville dealt them, and that was on both sides of the ball. I just thought they did not respond at all to the challenge from Louisville, and just a disappointing effort all around.
I mentioned it earlier, and a couple of callers talked in. They just didn't really, I guess, understand the how things got so out of control. But to me, this team is still very fragile, and I brought that up. It just seems like if things go poorly, they still have a real hard time dealing. And I think once we talked about a couple of those key series early on, it was going to be a shootout. You knew it was from the beginning. Once things went badly and they trailed, you could just tell all the momentum got sucked out of them, and they just never had a chance. I mean, and the caller made a good question. Is that something to be coached, or is this something that's going to take a long time through recruiting, getting the right kind of guys in there?
I mean, I think, you guys were talking about it earlier, and you're right. I mean, it's not going to be the growth of a program, especially a program as low as Florida State is not going to be a straight line. It's going to be steps forward, steps back, learning experiences. And I think that's, kind of what this was. I think it was a perfect storm in the sense that Louisville has been coming. I mean, Louisville's got some really good, nice players. They just haven't played well. And then they kind of started getting some confidence, and Florida State didn't. I don't think this game determines the last 5 games or 6 games any more than last week did. These are all just kind of one-off games because you got a team that's just trying to find itself. But and Corey's up there, up in the press box. He's writing right now. That's why I'm doing the interview from here. But I think he tweeted not too long ago just that look, it looked like one of those days. I honestly don't think what happened today necessarily means this team's going back in the tank any more than what happened last week means they're going to win out.
Well, Ira, you pulled a Corey because you jinxed this team. You wrote about the penalties. That's the story. The last story up on Warchant, and they did it again. They had 6 for 65 and some really huge ones in the first half there.
Hey, I didn't say they fixed them. I said it's a big problem. And if anybody jinxed anybody, maybe it was Corey with his Travis feature. Because no, Jordan didn't play bad. I still think, I know a lot of people are gonna want to make the move to Chuba because you feel like maybe he's a better passer. But I don't know. I still if Jordan Travis is healthy, I think it's his team, but he has to be healthy. Like a banged up Jordan Travis who can't run and isn't a threat as a runner. I mean, even this game, Louisville was still respecting his run a little bit, even though he wasn't really wanting to run. I think once teams know he's not going to run, you're back. You might as well have James Blackman back there. So that's going to be interesting, how healthy he is and what they do at that position going forward.
Yeah, and that's something I should have noticed when I watched on TV, because the first time I saw him run out of bounds a lot of times and ran out of bounds yards before even a defender around. He did not want to take a hit to that left arm, you could tell.
Yeah, and I feel bad for him, but I also and some people are going to question why they played a guy that's not 100%. But again, I think because of this offensive line, because of this where this offense is without Tamori and Terry at wide receiver, with no real proven receivers, they have to have the threat of a running quarterback. So I think that's why they went with him.
I want to leave off with a positive. I'm shocked when I forget what the final total was. Was 260 yards? Was that what it was, Tom? Rushing 265 on the ground for Florida State. You would have told me going to this game they rushed for 265. I'm like, FSU's winning this game. Instead, they get blown out. So, I mean, if there is a positive to take from this game offensively, it is that, they do have a viable running game. They've had it for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah, and that was without, Jordan really, running a whole lot. LaDamian Webb, I thought, again, looked really good. And he didn't get a ton of carries, but I thought he looked good. And Jayshon Corbin, that might have been the best we've seen him look. He looked a bit more explosive. And then you got Lawrence Tofili back in the action. So I think that was positive as well. But, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with the wide receivers. And that's going to be the key because, if Jordan's healthy and if the receivers step up, that's going to be a big deal. But the receivers – I think they've been below average for most of the season overall, except for that one big game that Tamori and Terry had. And getting him back would be a big deal next week. But that whole group just has to play a lot better, all of them.
So, Ira, a quick question, a little housekeeping here. Let me hit this real quick. Yeah! All right, we appreciate Eric for his support. That's the sounder for support. He's asking a question about coaching self-evaluation and how the coaches are evaluated down the line. I think he was putting to us, when do you finally ask Mike Norvell about the defensive coaches? But let me rephrase that question and give it to you to answer, which is, at what point is it more of a concern beyond you've got to get your system installed and you got to erase the culture? I mean, is it next season before those questions can be raised? Is it 3 weeks from now? What do you think?
There's two separate things. One is the question about Adam Fuller and making a change, because you see a lot of that already on the message boards on Twitter. Right. The guy's 6 games in a 3-year contract, and they're paying him $800,000 a year. I would be very surprised if they made a change at the end of the season. I would be completely surprised if they made a change now. Having said that, though, if you watch that post-game press conference and you watch Mike Norvell, and I asked him about the defense, and I asked him specifically, are guys confused? How was Louisville able to get some of those mismatches and just wide open plays? And he said some of it's execution, some of it we got to do a better job with play calls, and some of it we've got to make sure guys are put in the position to succeed. It's pretty, in terms of coach speak, that's as strong a criticism probably you're going to see of a defensive coordinator, I think, in certainly in Game 6 of his tenure. So I don't think Mike Norvell's happy at all with what's going on defense. What they can do there, I don't know. And part of it, the Javian Hawkins long touchdown run, that's not an Adam Fuller. I mean, you got a cornerback and a defensive end looking like they've never played football before. Like they didn't know Hawkins was allowed to run back to that side of the field. But there were other things. You can't have Tutu Atwell, who's one of the most dynamic players in the country, matched up against your safeties or just to get in space as often as Florida State did. So, Adam Fuller, I think, is going to have to answer some tough questions from Mike Norvell. I know everybody wants it to be us to do that. I think he's got to worry about the questions he gets from Mike Norvell, I think.
But one more thing I want to let you go when that comes out, and I've always said we're going to look to the month of November, which we're coming up on here, and that's really going to tell the tale here. If they get to that Duke game at the end of the year and the defense still looks like this, then I think everybody should legitimately ask that question. Maybe you need, even after a year, to make that change, because you cannot be that bad for that period of time with no improvement. But, I mean, time is running out. We got the bye week. November's here. And this is it. I mean, they can't have any more games like this, or boy, that the defense is really it can't be this bad with the same coaching staff going into another year.
Yeah, and like we've said, I mean, some of these games in the last 4 or 5 weeks are games that are much more winnable, and your offense should be able to move the ball. With Jordan Travis, especially if he's available, you're going to score points against NC State. You're going to score points against Duke and Virginia. Your defense can't be going up, giving it 45 points. Louisville, again, they've got some nice athletes, but they had season highs in yards and points today. They got 48 points today after getting 54 points in their last 3 games combined. So it's tough to ration this one away to, hey, we just played a great offense.
Hey, I know we got some great things coming up on Warchant, and people are really excited to read about this wonderful performance by FSU, Ira. So what do we got cooking here for tonight, and then maybe what people can wake up tomorrow, what can they read on Warchant?
Yeah, the reason you're talking to me, the JV team right now, is because Corey's up there and he's finishing his column. So Corey's column on the game, which will be up pretty shortly, and then we'll be doing our wrap video. I'm going to have a 3-2-1 coming. I'm also going to have a story about the defense and some of those comments that kind of expanded look at those comments that Mike Norvell made, which I thought were pretty strong. And we also talked to Emmett Rice, who was pretty strong as well. I mean, he said, look, we have guys doing too much. We have 8 guys. I mean, he's not going to put it on the coaches. He put it more on the players. He said on a lot of those plays, they had 8 guys doing their job and 2 or 3 guys freelancing. And, again, at the end of the day, that comes back to coaching. But they have these 2 weeks now to really take a good long look at the defense. But yeah, we'll be exploring that, and then you'll have your stat bomb coming tomorrow, and plenty more coverage throughout the weekend at warchant.com.
And that is going to be a bomb. It's going to lay decimation to everything, I think. Yeah, I'm wondering what the over/under is right now in the wide receiver grades and linebacker grades. That's going to be nasty. All right, Ira, great job. And you are no one's junior understudy, man. You are 5-star show bell.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
So good job, buddy. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks,
all right,
Ira.
take care.
All right, Gene. So obviously there's going to be something to listen for in the Mike Norvell postgame, which we do. But probably since the callers have been waiting on hold for a little while,
we'll get to them before we'll get to Norvell in a minute. People, be patient. But
Ty in Tennessee is up next. You've been waiting for over a half an hour, Ty. Thank you for your patience. You're going to hear the bell right now, and you are on with us in the Warchant.com postgame show. Go ahead, Ty. Welcome.
Yeah, everybody. Me and my best friend talks. We talk about my FSU, and he's by far nowhere near an FSU fan, but like he tells me, you got to be patient. We have like one of the best coaching staff that you could ask for. And, look what he did at Memphis, like y'all talked about in your previous show. You got to look at that. And now they're at a bigger stage where they can get better recruits, like we talk about all the time on the show as well. But the biggest thing is, we don't have a coachable team whatsoever. And that's why we suck so bad. They're not coachable. Just like when we get penalties thrown, guys throwing up their hands. What's the reason they're throwing up your hands? It was a stupid mistake that you made. So the next play, when you come out, you got to go even harder than what you did on that play that you just did and cause the team to lose yards. Just like when Norvell's getting on to him. It goes back onto me when I play college football and high school football. And I used to do the same thing. I'll look the other way, won't look him in the eyes, but like they tell me, look a man in his eyes and respect him for what he's doing for you. And that's what we don't have on our team, and that's why we lose so bad. We have the players. We should never lost today, to be honest. We don't have DNs like we used to. We don't have a Bajor Warner. We don't have a DeMarcus Walker. We don't have none of them no more. But that's no excuse. We got Kane, though. Great athlete. Robertson, terrible. I'm just going to be flat out real about it. He is beyond terrible. He is. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. What has he done in the past 4 years? Answer it. Me and my cousin talk about it all the time as well. The guy has did nothing great. Slow.
Indeed. Gene?
Yeah. I was looking. I don't see. Am I missing Kane? Can you pull up the defensive stats? Did he play today? I don't even see him in the defensive.
Well, Gene, I got to tell you, it's not even reliable. They've got Tamorian Terry with a tackle today. So
okay. So maybe that's not on there. I mean, I don't remember his number being called. today. I'm assuming Kane Doa's out there. And you see Robinson with 1 tackle, and that's all he did. He said they had a quarterback hurry in there.
Yeah.
But, here's the thing, and this goes back to recruiting, but thank you, Ty, for a good phone call there. It does go back. I mean, Robinson was signed as kind of a project type of guy. He was a guy who had, good measurables, maybe works out. But the fact that he's your only option effectively at defensive end, I mean, that goes back to the last few years and what you're talking about. I mean, they have a lot of the guys just are not, you can only coach up a guy so much if he doesn't have either he's lacking skills or lacking the right kind of mentality or both in some cases. That's a really tough job for a coaching staff.
Yeah.
So I do agree. Again, I've told people they want to be upset. They want to fire. I see all the posts on Warchant social media, fire Norvell, fire Fuller. First of all, it's not happening. Now, I said before, if the defense continues to be this horrific to the end of the season, then I think there's a legitimate question to be asked about the defensive coordinator.
Oh, the fun of losing into a bye week, Gene, because we know in this country, everybody likes to yell at each other and everything's zeros or ones. It's binary. That's not usually the case. The gray area exists.
They don't want to hear it, Tom.
And here you go. You're going to have a camp saying it's Fuller and nothing else, and you're going to have a camp saying the players aren't good enough and it's nothing else. It's probably a combination that both are doing as well as they need to do.
Because I saw players put in position to make plays, and they didn't, and I saw also some bad decisions schematically that happen on the field as well. So they're both sucking right now. Let's be honest about it. They really are. But again, we need to see improvement. That's all it is, guys. I know we're all stuck on the results. It's the process. Are we going to see some improvement by the end of the season? Let's wait to hold the fire, whatever, who's to blame by the end of the season, because we get at that point we can take some stock and look objectively back on what happened from game 1 to the last game of the season. I guess the bowl game, I guess they're all eligible. So I guess what do you push for there, Tom? Was it the Gasparilla Bowl?
Oh God, I'll take a bowl of cereal at this point. Well, and I agree with you, Gene. It's the end of the year assessment. You're a businessman yourself. You're looking at the P&L reports quarterly and annually, and then you're looking at it year over year. And where are we? It's a little early yet, but oh joy, the bye week where we get to yell at each other for a couple of weeks. Next up, a couple more before Mike Norvell's press conference will be run here on the Warchant.com postgame show. We go to Quent in Tampa. Quent in Tampa, welcome to the program. And go ahead, vent away, sir.
Hey, how you doing? I just got a couple points that I want to say. I've been a Florida State fan for 30 years. I've seen the good, and now I'm seeing the bad. My problem with this team, and it's been that way for the last few years, very undisciplined. Like, I played football all my life. The first thing we taught on defense, keep outside containment. Like, I'm watching the game, you see players constantly out of position. Like, on that long run, like Robinson, he come knifing in, the dude cut back and nobody there. On the Atwell play, like the setup, they first touchdown, I think. It's 3rd and 7 and the cornerback playing 12 yards off. And he was one-on-one coverage. It is crazy. It's undisciplined, and I don't know if it's coaching, just players. And I want to say this, a lot of people might say that I'm crazy and don't know what I'm talking about. But since the 2000 national title game, like, we had one season where we were dominant, and that was the 2013 team. Like, it was no question we were dominant. 2012, we shouldn't have lost to NC State. We had a lead. We shouldn't have lost to Florida. 2014, like, they got content. They was happy they won the national title, so I felt like they didn't play as hard as they should have the way they did in 13. Like, all the turnovers, the interceptions, Jameis threw, we fall behind by 4 touchdowns and he bring us back. Yeah, that's good, but you don't see Alabama or Clemson when they win a national title, they satisfied. They keep trying to win more and more. Like, we just been undisciplined for these last few years. And you know, like, guys do stupid penalties, hit players out of bounds and do stuff, and they still get back in the game. Like, Norvell has to send a message. I don't care if you Tamari Terry or Marvin Wilson. Like, if you mess up, you get in trouble. You get disciplined. He have to send a message that no matter who you are, this will not be tolerated, and I guarantee you will have some success. I have to hang up and just listen to your take on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Quent. And anybody who likes defensive football, like you said, you were a former player, Quent, a defensive player. Yeah, the undisciplined play, the over pursuit, the play you're talking about too. I was just so mad. It was like it was a race to see who can get to the middle of the field the fastest. Yeah. They had no concept of playing in their positions, playing their lanes. I'm going to run to the middle as fast as I can. So of course, the running back's only going to go one spot. He's going to run straight ahead, and he's never going to go side to side. And then, obviously the penalties and just some of the silly stuff too. So that does drive you nuts. And I don't know. I know it seems like what we see Mike Norvell as being more of a disciplinarian, pulling guys out. We hear he's hard on them in practice, but I don't know. Maybe he needs to go harder. You bench him for full games, even if it hurts the team. Something has to be done to stop this, because it's painful to watch. Yeah. And it seems like it's something that's easily correctable, but apparently it's not, because it keeps happening.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it, Gene. It seems simple, but apparently it can't be, because you've had how many sets of eyeballs as position coaches, coordinators, head coaches look at the same issue, and they're coming up with a lot of similar results. But I agree with about 95% of what Quent said. I think that's an excellent call. But I do think that this coaching staff deserves credit for getting guys out if they're making mistakes. Should the penalties be harsher? Maybe we could debate that, but I don't think there is any debate at this point that if you have somebody making a mental mistake or a selfish mistake, or they're not good enough and they're not playing up to the keys and the principles of what they're taught and what they're trained to do during the week, they get yanked. But I agree. I mean, how many times do we have to see guys on the edge, especially on the defensive front, or some linebackers? It's almost like I'll drop a video game thing. You're hitting L1 to like you have a running back and the ball in his hand. You're hitting L1 to jump cut. That's what it looks like. The snap of the ball, and you have your end crash in towards the middle of the field. It makes no damn sense, and it drives me nuts too. But I do think this coaching staff is doing a better job of holding guys accountable, certainly, than Willie did. And I think they're doing a pretty good job on the whole. I think Joe wants to talk about this particular point or something close to it as well. Joe is out in Texas. And it looks like he just hung up the phone as we brought him on the program. So that's unfortunate. But we'll go to Austin in Winter Haven. Austin in Winter Haven, welcome to the program. Joe, if we lost you, call back and we'll get you on the air. But welcome, Austin. How you doing?
Hey, man. How y'all doing today?
Hanging in there, man. How about
you? All right, Austin. Not bad.
And it's everything that they've done good the last two games against Notre Dame and against North Carolina. They completely went away from it today. They played with effort. They played with heart. They fought hard, and today, man, some of them guys look like they were waking. They just woke up. It hurts to watch that after you watch them do so good during the last couple of weeks. You're like, yeah, they're on the right track, and they came out there with no heart, like with a big head, like they earned something because they beat one team one time. It's hard to watch sometimes, man. I mean, I love my team. I know they're going to do good. Norvell's going to get them on the right track, but to watch them come out there and play with absolutely no heart after, just you said, giving up 500 yards, even though we won the game, they still gave up 500 yards. Come out there and act like they can go out there and out-athlete people on the field. It's ridiculous, man. I don't know. I don't know how to get across to those guys that, y'all aren't that good. Y'all have to fight every game y'all go out and play in.
Yeah, I mean, that's the frustrating thing that you saw for two games. You saw progress, a lot of it. Unfortunately, I think the North Carolina game was fool's gold to some extent, where I think a lot of the fans and even us in the media to some extent bought into it really more than it should have been. This team still has some major, major problems on both sides of the ball that need to get fixed, and it may not be a quick fix. But, yeah, because you'd hope for the program to at least show some progress. I think if they could have gone out, they could have lost a close game. We still get upset people. It was a 1-4 team. You shouldn't have lost, but the manner in which they lost, coming off of two games where you look like you made progress, to me, that's very frustrating, and that's going to leave dents with the fans and recruiting, across the board. And you got to wait 2 weeks now to try to get it right.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree, Gene. And as Austin was talking, you put a comment up, and I'm looking for it now because I thought it was a great point, but I'm blanking on it. So while I'm thinking of that point, there it is. Yeah, linebacker safety is the middle of the defense. This is something I talked about last week with North Carolina, and that was I was stunned that they didn't take advantage of the linebacker and safety level in the RPO game. They wanted to run the ball consistently on first and second down. And if you're alertly watching what we do and what we don't do on defense, you'd let Sam Howell in the RPO game feast on the middle of the field. Clearly, Satterfield saw that and said, all right, we're not messing around where we're going. And we played right into their hands with the pressures that were brought early. You're leaving those receivers and those defensive backs in one-on-one situations. And guess who won? Because the pressure didn't get home in time. Louisville, in a huge way, to the point where they had over 13 yards per play in the first half. And they had more than 9 for the game, and that's with garbage time. And they're trying to run the clock out a little bit at the end. Is it time now, Gene, do you think, for the Mike Norvell post?
Yeah, I think we let Mike wait long enough. I mean, he's been in timeout, but we can let him out.
Yeah, as you can see, it looks like it's a bit of a darker press conference setting today, and it was a dark day.
to set the mood.
So here we go. Mike Norvell's thoughts. This is on Warchant TV on the YouTube channel. You can always catch all the interviews post-game for players and coaches. Now we go to Mike Norvell, and be on the lookout for that Adam Fuller Q&A from Ira.
In man-to-man coverage, and it's a talented and explosive offense that we faced, and we didn't do much to slow them down today. At special teams, when we talked, we needed that to be a big impact for us. We weren't really able to get our return game going. But other than that, I mean, it's just not a performance that is reflective of what I expected, and obviously. We got a lot of work to do within our program, and we have to continue to learn from these lessons, these opportunities, and obviously, we challenged our guys this week to go out there and to push themselves to improve in all aspects, and the same things that have shown up early in the season are still showing up. So we got to reevaluate the way that we are holding guys to that standard of what we expect. And once again, obviously, I didn't have the team prepared to play to the level that they're capable of today. So that goes on me, and it will be corrected, and we'll continue to grow and move forward from this point.
Hey, Mike, I'm curious, did this feel like a setback? You mentioned that you felt like you guys were making similar mistakes as maybe you made previously, but after last week, the progress you made, did this feel like a step backwards for the program?
I mean, there were lessons even last week. We won the game last week, but there were still lessons that had to be learned. And we played a really good half of football last week, and we missed out on some opportunities in the second half, and you did some things that are going to cost you, and that showed up today, and you're not going to be successful if those things continue to show up within the way that we play. And so we've got to do a better job making sure that we're finishing plays when we get the opportunity to finish them. With some drop passes, some missed tackles. We knew that this team had big play capability, and if you let them get in space, there's a chance that they can really make you pay. And obviously that happened with some missed tackles, and obviously it wasn't it did not allow us to play the way that we were capable of. We are a team that is a continued work in progress. So you say a setback. I mean, we understand what it is to play winning football. We've seen it. We've seen flashes of it. We've seen moments. But right now we are not playing consistent enough to be able to sustain that. And we got to continue to work and learn lessons and go get it improved in practice. And it's got to show up there on game day.
Coach, in terms of penalties, I know you talk about penalties and, wanting to decrease during each game. Going forth, what has to be the tactic to make sure that the team is mentally and emotionally in the game to, decrease those false starts, all of those type of issues?
That's something that we've got to continue to work on. And honestly, a choice has to be made. There's not been a day that's gone by that I've been here that there's not been accountability in how and what our standard is. And there's going to continue to be accountability for that. But obviously the message needs to continue to get across, and a choice has to be made. And that's in all aspects of what we're doing.
Jordan Travis, coach, did not seem maybe as bold or daring running the ball, breaking contain as he has in the past. Is he just having to preserve himself a little bit more cautiously than maybe weeks prior?
Jordan was a little banged up there this last week, and did a good job of practicing, working through that. Obviously somebody that's as dynamic with his legs as he is, and being able to extend plays, in those opportunities. We want him to be smart. We want him to, obviously get what he can get. Keep that playmaking ability that he has. But that was part of today.
Was that what led to the quarterback change late in the game?
It was twofold. Obviously Jordan was, a little banged up, and then also get an opportunity. Chuba got cleared here this week. I thought it was an opportunity to be able to get him out there, get him some live work, and he's really he's been pushing hard to get back in practice, to get some of those experiences. I think it's a great great learning experience for him. He was able to get out. He got hit a little bit. He was able to work to make some throws, and obviously get a sense of the speed of it. Because he missed a good amount of that throughout fall camp, and here early in the early part of the season.
I know the long touchdown run by Hawkins was kind of a broken play where he was hemmed up, but a few of their touchdowns, it looked like busts. Was there confusion on defense, or lapses in execution, or what was going on there?
There were a handful of times that, as you prepare and you work through the week of, what you expect and what you see. I mean, there's times that we were, had pretty good calls into some of these plays, and there were times that, we probably could get better situations. But everybody's got to make sure that we're communicating. We have 11 guys playing as one. When you're playing a zone team that obviously as efficient as they are, and it's a good football team, good backs. But we got to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to win our gaps. And when you get an opportunity to get there and make the play, we got to make the plays. And so there's some things that we'll have to continue to evaluate in all aspects. But it was a little bit of everything today.
You talked about the same mistakes, a lot of the same mistakes, penalties, drops at bad moments, defensive lapses, things like that. I mean, is that something where would you rather it be a lot of the same mistakes each week, or would you rather have different things? Which would be more frustrating, having different things that kind of pop up every week, or dealing with the same things week in and week out?
I want to see growth. I want to see application of lessons that you've learned. And at the end of the day, not been a part of a game or a performance where every person was perfect. There's going to be mistakes that show up. But when you have a point of emphasis of something that needs to get corrected, you have something that you've seen and you've lived that keeps you from being successful and playing to the best of your capabilities. There needs to be a change in that regard. And I can tell you that we are working our tails off at practice every day and meetings, and addressing things individually, collectively as a group. And it's in the moment. Right, with all the right intentions, we've got to make sure that we are playing the game the way that it's supposed to be played, and that's with passion, that's with discipline, that's with unbelievable effort, right? And then we got to trust the techniques and the fundamentals of what is what's being taught, and that'll put us in the best position to make the plays. It doesn't guarantee us that we're going to make all the plays, but it'll put us in the best position, and that's something that has to show up more consistently within this football team.
The TV crew mentioned that Coach Dugans and James Blackman both are dealing with illnesses. Was that limited to those guys, or has it been anything that's been a bigger factor throughout the team this week?
No, those guys are dealing with illness and didn't make the trip.
Even though in spite of today's outcome, there were a few good plays. There were some good plays tonight. What advantages did you build on to exploit on their weaknesses?
Well, obviously, as you go through the game, there's going to be good plays and there's going to be plays that you got to learn from. I think some of the positive experiences for some of our young guys. I think seeing Lawrence get back out there and be able to make an impact. Obviously having an opportunity. We kind of had to get into the depth, at some positions. But seeing guys, working hard to try to get better, to try to grow. I mean, we're playing a lot of young kids. I mean, there's. You look out there, Sidney Williams. You play a lot of snaps there at safety. As a true freshman, we're really pushing these guys to come along and develop. I mean, that's part of our process, and it's part of our growth. I think we've shown that we can play at a very high level. We just need to do that more consistently, and we're going to go back to work and make sure that we're doing the things necessary and to be able to let that show up for 60 minutes on Saturday.
Last one's going to Aslan.
Coach, we talked about the effort level, the aggressiveness that your front played with against North Carolina, how they kind of built on that. Did Louisville, with the waggle kind of bootleg stuff they were running with their quarterback, did they sort of, rope-a-dope that part of the defensive line in and to create the big plays? Was it the aggression almost too much maybe?
No, I mean, I thought – I think that every game you have a plan of what you're trying to do. Obviously, we've got to execute ours better than what we did today. But there's times that we've got to make obviously make the plays and make sure we're putting our guys in the best position to be successful throughout the course of the game. And that's something they had a good plan. They obviously they're good coaches, and we're able to attack us in a couple different ways, but we have to play aggressive football. We've got to give relentless effort. We've got to make sure that we're relying on the fundamentals and the techniques of what we're teaching and what you work throughout the course of the week. And then you got to go out there and you play with unbelievable passion. And that's showing up in spurts. But like I said, we've got to make sure that we do a better job of being more consistent. And I can promise you that we're gonna continue to work there in practice to get that established. And that's all that we can do is continue to work and keep our head down and work to improve in all aspects of our program and what we're trying to accomplish.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, Gene. So there he was, Mike Norvell, offering his thoughts on the beatdown that took place in Louisville, Kentucky today. It was a nuanced little dig at the defensive coaching. You had to really listen for it. But clearly, those coaches' meetings tomorrow, are not going to be pleasant. And I don't think the film review that the team goes through tomorrow is going to be pleasant either. This is going to be an ugly couple of weeks for Nole fans, Nole players, the coaches, you name it. This is not how you want to go into a bye week.
And those of us that moderate message boards, it will not be fun for us either. So let's get that. No. I mean, but hey, maybe them stewing in their filth for a couple weeks will help. I mean, I know a lot of callers frustrated. Why do they keep making these same mistakes? And a lot of them are mental based. You got to reinforce the mistakes. You got to show them over and over and over. That means you see twice as much film. There's twice as much corrections in practice, and so be it. Yeah. I mean, at some point, it's got to stick, I would think. But I do know, Tom, we got a lot of patient callers, so we want to get to those. This is your show. This is for the people, somebody said. So let's hear.
Next up is Albert. He was at the game today in Louisville. Great weather. I'm sure you enjoyed a good fall afternoon. Albert, welcome to the program. You got an observation and a question. Go for it.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, 96 grad at Florida State, live in Louisville now. I appreciate the show. Happy birthday. So I was at the game, had a good view, and just the observation is it's been echoed a few times. The defense just looked like they didn't practice or watch any film on this Louisville team. I mean, Hawkins has a history of on those stretch runs, breaking it back when it gets bottled up, so we lost containing that run. But more importantly, looking from up top, just Jones and even Akeem Dent, many times they didn't know where to go. Their hands were up in the air, looking over the sidelines, play after play. Jones one time was late on a blitz, which was the long Tutu Atwell touchdown. He didn't get close to getting home, and that's why Malik could just throw it up for Tutu to run to a spot. So that's my observation. But my question is, related to Chuba and not coming in sooner. Like, I'm not blaming Travis Jordan at all. He had a bunch of drops. The guy's an incredible runner and has proven that he's deserved to start. But when we're down by almost 30 points with like 14 minutes left in the game, and maybe I analogize it to a pitcher that's throwing strikes, but his defense is making errors and you're down by 10 runs. Sometimes you need a spark or to mix it up. But if Chubb is potentially the future here at Florida State, and you know you're not going to come back from 3 or 4 scores with a running first quarterback, why not give Chubb a chance to come in and have a spark and build off something sooner than 5 minutes left to go in the game? That's my question. Thanks, guys. I'll hang up and listen.
Well, thanks for calling in, Albert. Appreciate it. Yeah, I agree with what you were seeing on defense. That was definitely the case. That's an interesting question on Chubba. My only thought is they brought him in at a time when there was no pressure, because at that point the game was over. He was just getting live reps against a real team. I think they took Jordan Travis out at the point when there was just no more chance. There was absolutely 0% chance of winning. I think he's your starter. I think maybe they were afraid to send a mixed signal at that point. It would look more like a benching. But especially, as much as what Ira was saying, what we hear about how much he was banged up, maybe hindsight, I didn't see the whole interview. I stepped out for a minute to get a drink and use the facility. So I don't know if that was asked, Tom, but that might have been something. I don't know if it was asked during Mike Norvell's press conference or not. But I mean, it is an interesting point that he didn't get a shot a little bit earlier in the game. I'm glad he got some time, but my guess is they just didn't want to put him out in a high pressure situation when Louisville was just rolling at that point.
Yeah, it was close. That's a close circumstance. I remember thinking and tweeting out, if there's not a touchdown on this specific drive and that's late third or early fourth quarter, then it's Chubba Purdy time. And it'll be interesting too to get Corey's perspective as he weighs in and wake up Warchant, maybe the boards. But did he see Chubba warming up in the second quarter or the third quarter just to stay warm in case they had a package for him or something along those lines? It appears they didn't because the game was well in hand before he came in. I think it's really close in that situation, Gene. If it's 24 points, it's still a 3-score game technically, and so you probably leave Jordan in definitely. But at 25, you could make an argument as a 4-score game that it's time to put.
So maybe that's one series we're talking about. Maybe he should have been in one series earlier.
One more series than he got, yeah. And that's, as the game wore on, Gene, you saw it more and more that Jordan Travis was not 100%. In the beginning, we'll see. It looks like he might be protecting something, but it doesn't look to be all the series. By the time we get to the third quarter, the middle of it, you're going, okay, 100%.
Yeah.
It's like a boxer who can't see out of one eye. You got that eye.
Yeah, to me, that's the better argument for taking him out of there. Look, he's banged up. Don't make it worse. You got Chubba ready. He's your backup. Get him out there. Maybe a little early to put him out there when the game's still on the line. But, man, your quarterback is done. There's nothing left.
To the last handful of callers here on the Warchant.com postgame show, we go to L.A. Noel in Albany. L.A. Noel, is it Albany, New York, Albany, Georgia? Where are you calling from today?
Well, actually, I'm calling for halfway between Louisville and Nashville. I'm halfway back to Nashville already.
All righty.
Was at the game, and a lot of things I was thinking y'all already covered. And Chubba was not warming up late in the third quarter even. We went down and had a shot at the end of the third quarter. We didn't score, but then we got the safety. He wasn't even warming up at that time. What I noticed is the guys did not look like, after midway through the first quarter when we got the 2 15-yard penalties, after that, it looked like they were disinterested. It was cold. It was windy. And they just didn't look like they were into being here to play football this weekend. And I'd be curious if Corey noticed the same thing when we get to talk to him a little bit later on in the week.
But before you go, Eleno, I got a quick question for you. You mentioned the wind. There were a couple of plays where Raymond Woody looks like he has an interception lined up and he finds a way not to pick the ball off. Was it that windy that you would think it would affect the throws, or no?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a stiff wind. It was a constant wind. Of course, we're up there in the upper deck, sitting there with nobody around you because of social distancing. But I think Norvell has either got to do something with 2 running backs to take a little pressure off Jordan from running the ball so much. And if the receivers are going to keep dropping the balls, we don't need to put 4 wide receivers out there if 3 of them can't catch. So I'd go to a 2-back offense with, 2 wide receivers or a wide receiver and a tight end. But most of the problems I saw today were that the few times that guys were open and Travis hit them, they dropped it. Then a couple of other times, Travis, just totally misfired on his throw. And you could see about midway through the first quarter, he was not himself. He was running out of bounds real quick to avoid getting hit. So Derril's got to realize if he's got an injured quarterback and a guy with a bad wing, he may, it may be better to put one of the freshmen in there unless they're just not ready to play.
Yeah, you're right, LA Knowles. That's what the last call brought up. Like maybe Chuba should have come in earlier, but you make a good point. And again, I wasn't there in person to see it. You saw it. Like I said, I want to see what Corey has to say too about how bad you can kind of see the body language sometimes of a player. It did seem like it on TV that Jordan Travis by second, third quarter was not the same guy that started the game because of that injury. Was just wearing him down, whatever the case was. So yeah, I don't think that would have made a difference in the game, even if you bring Chuba in, but why leave a quarterback out that's obviously operating at 50% or whatever it was at that point? And you're right. We mentioned a couple of those key series with the drops and the penalties in the first couple series when you knew it was going to be a shootout. And they knew once they got down 21-7, you could see it looked like they were thinking the game's over. And again, that goes back to this being a very fragile program. They can't handle any adversity whatsoever.
Well, that's one thing also that Ira mentioned when he came on with us just a few moments ago. And if you miss any of this is going to be available to you on demand. You can enjoy it plenty of times between now and the next time Florida State plays with a bye week coming up. But that Emmett Rice would say that 8 or 9 guys are doing the right thing and a couple players are freelancing. Mm-hmm. I wonder if that also extends to penalties, not just freelancing within the scheme, but then also after the play. Because, I mean, that's a killer. You could see a couple of times when the flags hit the ground, some of the guys on the back side of the field or the opposite side on your television screen going, you got to be kidding me. Like
here we go again.
We just did all of these things to get us where we wanted to be, and then you have to go and do something dumb to give them even better field position. That's a mess. Those are things that position meetings and segment meetings aren't enough. You almost have to have player-to-player communication saying enough is enough. We only have about 4 more callers. It looks like we might have somebody in the screening room, but 4 more callers. John and Inverness. John and Inverness is next up on the Warchant.com postgame show. Welcome to the program, good sir. You're hearing the bell right now. What say you, John?
How are you guys doing today?
Hey, John, pretty good.
Yeah, you're doing about as good as we all are, really.
Yeah.
Listen, I just got a question here for you. Number one, I'm just going to start off by saying, for Noel Nation, I believe we have the right coach. I really believe we got the right head coach. At least I would like to, depending on how November goes, like we've all said, there may need to be some coaching changes here before the year's end, because we've got the right head coach and we just cannot continue to go 4 years, 5 years on the same trend without replacing some of these coaches, especially if this trend continues, which obviously all the signs and writing are on the wall. But really my one question is this. Obviously, we have talent on the field. We've got talent in Terry. We've got talent in running backs. We've got talent on the field in certain spots. But my question is this: Are we asking recruits that aren't maybe to the quality of what we've been spoiled with through the last X amount of years? Are we asking them maybe to perform at a level they're simply not capable of?
I do agree with your point that I think you're right. Florida State still has some talent at certain positions, and they're really lacking at talent at others. Without Terry out there, this is a very mediocre wide receiver core. We can see that. We can see the linebacker core is well below average from what we've seen. I think outside of Asante Samuel, it's been very ho-hum kind of nothing group in defensive backfield. So, offensive line, we've talked about that ad nauseum the last few years. I don't know, without being at practice, without being in the meetings, if their coaches are asking these players that are maybe not up to the level they should be to do more than they're capable of. I don't know what you're feeling about that, Tom.
I think if you're asking guys to play man against Tutu Atwell, that's going to be a problem. But if you're talking about big philosophy stuff, this is why these guys get paid the big bucks, and we get to sit and watch and see what works and what doesn't. That is, I think, a lot about when you do your private meetings with the players, the Zoom meetings, the preparation. You get to know where they are here in their minds, and that influences how you can coach them. And like, for example, I can't know if Akeem Dent in certain plays, now I know the backside contain he blew, but I can't know if in certain plays, if he's supposed to be in a deep third, if he's supposed to be in man. But what I do know about Akeem Dent so far this season, his body language is awful. It's awful. Yeah. Anytime something goes wrong, it's the palms to the sky, looking in the air and looking defeated. And that is something that as a fan, it drives us nuts. But as a coach, you've got to find a way to get that look from defeated and looking up to the sky to you're looking your opponent in the eye and you've got something extra. And Louisville had that today, Gene. Both sides of the ball. Louisville had that today, and Florida State didn't. So I don't know if that answers your question per se, but that's my feeling. It's a mess. They were brought in here to clean up a mess, and we still see
a mess.
It's still on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you to Ransom, of course. One-dimensional team. I would agree with that right now, Gene. They can run the ball. They can run the hell out of the ball, but the passing game is inconsistent week to week, and Jordan Travis isn't exactly the most accurate quarterback in the world either. Besides,
you take him in a quarterback who's one-dimensional because he couldn't run, probably because of his injury most of the game.
Yep.
And you get to have not without Terry out there, and you've got receivers who don't run good routes, who can't when they do get open and the ball is thrown to them and they drop it half the time. So yeah, it is that whole aspect of the game right now. The passing game's a complete mess.
We go up next to Lauderdale. Actually, we're going down south to Lauderdale. It's Alex is joining the show, the Warchant.com postgame show. Alex, welcome to the program, and go right ahead.
What's up, guys? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hear you, Alex.
Fire away.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can.
Hello? Oh, cool. I'm an FSU grad of 2011, been following since 1993. I'm also FSU fan 1993 in the chat. And I saw a team that there was no fight there. It is if you've never played football at all this entire season, and we just woke up and went on the field and let's see what happens. And I don't know if that's just the environment, or if as the fans were spoiled, or if that's a leftover culture from two failed administrations. But I feel like if we don't have like a 30-point lead at the half, we can't play football. The defense, there was no cohesion, there was no fight. I didn't see a top-notch, top-5 football program. And I've been following FSU since 1992, so I've been there for ups, downs, sideways. Does Mike Norvell just need to bring everybody in, have a sit down, what is our culture? Who are we trying to be? Are we Florida State, or are we an FBS team? I don't know how you guys address that, but happy birthday to the guy on the left, and I'll hang up and listen.
Well played, Alex. Well played, the guy on the left.
Well, if you're not seeing a top 5 team, Alex, you're going to be waiting another 5 years.
Yeah, no. I don't see a top 50 team right now. That's the frustrating part. At least not this afternoon. We did not see a top 50 team.
And sacrifice to whatever God they want to happen.
And to Alex's point, I mean, I don't know. It may be time for Mike Norvell to try some radical stuff. I don't know what you need to do. You need to do something, because that's just unacceptable. What you saw, just the constant mistakes, the mental errors, it points to lack of effort, the jogging, the body language. There's so many things you can point to. It's just like you just want to shake them and get out of this funk. You make a couple bad plays. You don't have to just completely throw the whole thing away. Teams do come back. I mean, it happens every week on Saturdays and Sundays. Teams get behind and they fight and they come back. And even if you don't win, at least you put up a good fight.
Yeah,
they just completely melt down when the first thing goes wrong. It's just very frustrating.
Yeah, I think on the positive side, you look at the rest of the schedule, it's gettable. I mean, this conference is what it is for the most part for the last 10 or 15 years, which is a whole bunch of below average. So a lot of these games are gettable. I want to be a little bit optimistic before the end of the postgame show. If you get some of these things cleaned up, I think you're going to move the ball. But I saw the comment earlier from Noel Bill, who, by the way, is one of the nicest people in the world if you ever meet Bill. But he said RPO, run pass option. You got to be able to do both consistently in order to get up and down the field. This offense, goes up and down the field in spite of the fact that we don't consistently complete passes over the middle and down the field. They scheme it up to where we're running the ball with great consistency. 265 yards on the ground today for Florida State with a quarterback who couldn't even run it at 100%. So, they can do some things, but if you really want to get this thing to open up and protect yourself against a defense that's given up 1,500 yards the last 3 weeks, then you're going to have to add the passing element to the game, and we're going to have to do so with consistency. Next up on the Warchant.com postgame show is Nate. He's in Texas, and he wants to talk about the linebackers. Ooh, good luck, Nate.
Oh, boy.
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for taking my call. And I think you touched on it earlier. I think if North Carolina's offensive coordinator was competent, they would have beat us by 40. Because I don't know why they weren't attacking our linebackers. And people want to attack Fuller and they want to attack the scheme. But at the end of the day, I love Rice, I love Gainer. They're not fast enough, and it is what it is. in today's offenses, they're not fast enough. They can't go east and west. They can fill the hole, but they're just not. They don't have the athletic ability. And it just is what it is. And until we get some players in at that position, it's just going to be average teams are just going to pick us apart. So that's all I wanted to say. But thank you guys so much for taking my call. And you have a good birthday.
Thanks, Nate.
Appreciate the call, Nate. Yeah, and Tom, you brought that up earlier about North Carolina not taking advantage of that. When Jeff Sims, a true freshman, can come in and pick you apart by just dinking and dunking against the linebackers in the middle of the field, because you can get the ball out of there quick, so you don't have to worry about getting pressure. You don't have to be – it's a short pass. It's very easy to accomplish over and over. And I ran a stat, I think it was a couple weeks ago. I don't think it took into account the North Carolina game, but I thought in passes under 20 yards, I mean, they were the 85 to 90% range completion, which is hard to do against air. And passes under 20 yards. So most of those were in the middle of the field. So why you're just not doing that over and over? And obviously, when you have a team, not only do you have a quarterback at least is decent, can get the ball there, and you have athletes, so when they get the ball in the middle of the field, they're not going to settle for the 8-yard catch. They can take off like Atwell and take it to the house. So that is problematic for this team. And I don't know, maybe you do have to change some things schematically. And that brought up the thing the caller said, like forcing players who aren't capable of doing something that they're not capable of. Maybe you need to have some more safety help or something in the middle of the field, because, man, that has been a consistent problem. If you got a savvy offensive coordinator, just a decent quarterback who can make short throws, you're in trouble.
Yeah, my guess is we might see a little bit less man moving forward. Maybe that's what Norvell was ticked about.
Yeah.
But that's where this argument that we're going to have about, is it the coaches because there's too much talent here, or is it the players, there's not enough, so what do you expect out of the coaches? I think at the linebacker level, I think Nate's point is alert. I think you got guys who are either too inexperienced or who aren't good enough or quick enough to get the job done. And that's 6 of 1. When you're talking about getting results this year. Steven Dix might turn into a really good player by the end of the season, but for his inexperience makes him slow. And then you've got guys who are just legitimately slow, and Louisville took full advantage of that. And I agree. I said it during the Cameron show, pregame show, that North Carolina, first thing they should do is take advantage of the middle of the field. They didn't. Florida State's going to have to find an answer for that, Gene, in the coming weeks, because it's on tape for the whole world to see. And not everybody's going to be as dumb as North Carolina about that. The last caller of the evening is Antonio. He's calling from the A, the land of Corey Clark. Antonio, welcome to the program. Defensive line containment. Is that what you want to talk about?
Yes, sir. How y'all doing today?
You're doing well. How are you, sir?
Doing well.
Woo, not so well, man. Trying to deal with this loss. Again, trying to deal with this loss. But no, my question is, man, our front four has underachieved pretty much all year. We expected a lot out of this defensive line. Matter of fact, it's probably everybody was saying it's one of the best fronts in the nation at one time. I didn't want to take it that far, but Kando and Robinson, I don't know. I don't see any effort. I see selfishness sometimes, crashing down, and big plays, big running plays. I mean, open lanes. I mean, this has happened consistent pretty much all year. I played running back, and when I see an end crashing down, you run right where they left.
Yeah,
and I think it's selfishness. Selfishness.
Yeah, but you're right, Antonio. And you see, right, and when you know as a running back and as an offensive coordinator that consistently the end on a certain side is going to crash to the middle every single play, it makes play calling really easy. It makes your job as a running back. You get like in the play with Hawkins on the one time, he was bottled up in the middle. He's going, well, you know what? I can run to that side where Robinson is because it's probably going to be nobody over there. And sure enough, and then he takes it to the house. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's the frustrating part, is that seems to happen consistently. And they don't have any more defensive ends to play over there right now. They just don't.
Yeah, this, Gene, takes me back. It's a story I've told a bunch of times, but it's Florida State preseason camp in the fall. James Coley is the offensive coordinator. Remember, he was a tight ends coach for a time as well.
Oh, yeah.
And they were doing individual drills, and a young Christian Jones, who was a true freshman, was working as a scout. And all it was about releasing this drill, about releasing into routes. That's all it was, just release. And the guys kept on chipping Christian Jones in practice. They kept on chipping him before they'd release into the route. And Coley would stop every time and say, guys, with this concept, you don't chip. You don't touch the rusher. Don't worry about it. Run right by him. Next 3 players, they chip the linebacker. And Coley starts screaming. He throws his hat down. He's screaming, blows a whistle. And then the next player does it again. And then he brings him over, and his voice drops. He goes, guys, it's really simple. He whispers. He's like, it's very simple. This is not – you just run right by him. Please make sure you do that next time. I feel like that's what Papuchis must be going through with the end, because they've got to be coaching them. Don't jump a gap over towards the football. What are you doing after the snap? And you see it time and time again. And Papuchis is probably just, he doesn't know what to do with himself. So that moment I saw with Coley, I don't think Papuchis is telling the guys, don't worry about it. Go wherever you want. Freelance.
Yeah. We know. I think he knows how to coach, but here's the thing. Robinson's a senior. He's been doing this for 4 years. He's been doing it. So obviously it's been a habit, because he did this last year. He did it the year before. He's always crashed down. That's been his thing. And it's just, you can't coach it out of him. And my first response is, well, he's not going to learn at this point. Bench him.
Right.
Who are you going to bring in there? Griffiths, a freshman? I mean, he gets pushed around. He's not physically ready to go out there. Put him in heat now and then. He can be good, bring a little energy. He's got a nice motor. He's not ready to be a full-time contributor at this point. You just don't have the players right now. That's what I keep trying to tell people. Yes, there are some major coaching mistakes, but man, they've got some huge holes. They have not recruited well the last few years at certain positions. And that's being exposed right now.
Well, and they've experimented with it too a little bit. McClendon was out there last week. Griffin has been out there a little bit, but you're right, Gene. It's not really a two deep. You don't exactly have a two deep at that position. Folks, if you felt this was an excellent therapy session for you after the thrashing today, Florida State's 48-16 loss, please hit subscribe. It's underneath where Gene is on the screen. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe and then hit the bell after that, because you'll be alerted every time Warchant puts up the great content that they do throughout the week, be it the Wake Up Warchant podcast or live chat, the recruiting chats, the happy hour, you name it, you'll be alerted every time it comes up. Gene, any final thoughts on coverage or the stat bomb? Like you said, it's going to be a massive one tomorrow, or anything else on Warchant before we sign off for the year?
Just happy birthday, buddy. Enjoy these last few hours. Hey, you get to go out, you and Jamie go out and celebrate this, hopefully have a few, get this off your mind. We'll, couple weeks. I do think, I know people want to hear this, and you can call me out. We're sitting here the Duke game, and they lose 42-10 to Duke and get run all over. Then, call up this show and just rip me a new one. That's fine. But I do think we're going to see some improvement. I think there's just going to be huge ups and downs right now.
Yeah.
There's some huge holes, but I think it's a decent coaching staff. I'm not ready to push them out yet. There's some mistakes. I think they can self-correct too. They can see what they did wrong and fix things, and that's a mark of a good staff. So I think they will be a little bit better, but I get it. This is a tough one to swallow, and you gotta swallow it, and it's going to sit in your gut for at least 2 weeks until that next game. But that's part of being a fan, part of being in the media. We got to deal with it. To be a fly on the wall of that coaches meeting tomorrow. I think Norvell, he holds them to a high standard. We don't talk about that often, but word around town is if he's not happy with the coaches, he'll let them know in no uncertain terms. And I think that'll be what tomorrow is all about. I'm going to make the angry guy tell us that it's goodbye time. And Sandman, we're going to go on that one. I think that's a good call. The show has ended. Goodbye. There it is. And then also I want to say thank you to everybody who contributed to the cause today. Everybody, thank you all for the well wishes. It's 34 years young tomorrow for me. I'm pressing towards 40. Knowles football the last 3 or 4 years has put me in my 50s already. But thanks to everybody who commented, called. Thank you to Terry, as always, for working the phones tonight. And Gene, I guess we'll be talking to each other in a couple of weeks. Good stuff, Tom. Enjoyed all your input today. Happy birthday, and we'll see you soon. All right. Good night, everybody.